It's about 1 o'clock, so we're going to officially call this meeting of the AIB to order. So as a reminder, this meeting is being recorded as public record, and that participation in a recorded meeting will be deemed as consent to be recorded, including statements both written and oral. Public records, including this recording, can be requested at any time in accordance with the Vermont Public Records Act. So welcome, everyone. We will start our introductions with the AIB members that I see and have in the room. So first, let's start with Jonathan.
Jonathan Chamberlain.
Just because we have a lot of new people, do you want to say what you reference? So you're our
Technical service provider, is that what?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Crop
Technical
consultant.
service provider, crop consultant.
Let's see. So myself, I'm Morgan Griffith. I am a sitting member of the board representing the Agency of Agriculture. And online, I see Amanda.
Sorry, I'm trying with this computer. Thank you. Amanda St. Pierre, dairy farmer in Berkshire, also a member of Vermont Dairy Producer Alliance.
Thanks for joining, Amanda. Sean.
Sean Lucas, UVM Extension. I am Extension Agronomist in the Middlebury office.
Thanks, Sean. And Leon.
Leon Course, I'm an organic dairy farmer in Whitingham, and I'm a member of NOFA Vermont, and I hold the seat on the board for the organic farmer.
Thanks, Leon. Okay, now I'm going to go through other people in the room here with me, and then I'll do other participants online. Stephanie, do you want to?
Yeah, Stephanie Smith. I'm a deputy director within the plant industry division. Maybe it's too soon to say that.
Oh, yeah. Yes, we are.
We're changing our
the
name
of our division within the agency. Tom, you want to?
Good afternoon, everyone. Tom Gates. I'm the Global Value-Led Dairy Manager for Ben & Jerry's Ice Cream.
Sylvia, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Sylvia Knight. I'm representing the Vermont Pesticide and Poison Action Network and the Vermont PFAS Coalition.
Bob, yeah.
I'm Carol Odie, and I'm a state representative. I represent the far new north end of Burlington.
Thanks, Carol. Go ahead, Bob. And go
I
ahead.
was just going to say that I'm Sylvia's partner. Very interested. So, not officially.
Thanks. Charles Littgen.
Yep. Chuck Likeb with Bear US.
Who's that?
Thank you.
Sorry.
And Margaret Stevens.
Hi, Peggy Stevens. Okay, I can't change my name up there for some reason. Anyway, I'm a member of Don't Undermine Memphremagog's Purity. I've also recently been meeting with Sylvia Knight's group. So I'm concerned about water quality in particular in the Northeast Kingdom.
Thank you, Peggy. Clark.
Clark Parmalee with the Vermont Agency of Agriculture. I'm a ag resource management specialist or inspector covering most of southeastern Vermont.
Thanks, Clark. Zach.
Zach Schakowsky, agricultural program manager, also with the same division as Clark, Stephanie, and Morgan.
Is there anybody? Oh, Jill. See you.
Joseph Goss. I'm an agricultural input specialist at the agency.
And Alicia?
Hey y'all, Alicia Utter here, and I'm here as a member of the public.
Okay, now I think I got everybody. So thank you all for joining. So the first thing on our agenda is previous meeting minutes. So I did send out to the members our meeting minutes from September 22nd. I didn't hear back from anybody, so those have been posted as they were shared with no further edits. And I will say, so you'll notice, well, one is just, I think we ran into sickness season and also just super busy season. So a few members weren't able to join us today. We will have some new members joining us coming up. One we do know who I think is unable to join us today, but might jump in later. We do have someone in replacing Steve Schubart. So Steve Schubart had to step away from his position as a member representing grass-based non-dairy livestock. And we are welcoming James Hamilton to represent that area for, he's a beef cattle, I think out of Brandon, Vermont. So we will welcome Jamie when he is able to join us. Yeah, Sean.
While we're talking about membership and new members, leadership at Extension has changed. And so Roy Beckford has stepped down as Extension Director. And so the question, I think, was asked by someone within the board, maybe, and actually within Extension too. What should we be doing about that? Should Chris Callahan be coming in that role since he's interim director of Extension, or should we find another Extension representative? I'm just trying to suss out how we figure that out.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. That is something. So Steve Dwinell was unable to join us today. He's at a national meeting for agricultural regulators around the country, but so he, I think, is in contact. Can you say the name? Sean? Is it Sean Callahan too? Was it Sean?
Chris Callahan. And so, I mean, I know he was in contact because I saw his email and another email that was forwarded to me since somebody else knew I was on the board. But I think, I guess I just want clarity. Was Roy on the board as Extension Director, and that's why he was on the board? And so is that a role that Chris should fill? Is that what we're expecting?
Yep. So I can show you guys, and this is great. So let's show you this. So these are who should be on the board. So the role that Roy was fulfilling is a member from the University of Vermont Center for Sustainable Agriculture.
Okay.
So
okay.
That's the role that Roy was filling. So it doesn't necessarily have to be. So I know those are all Extension, but it's a specific part of Extension. So we went up kind of from that center to fulfill that role. But so that's what's in statute for fulfilling that role. So if that helps kind of find somebody, but I know Steve can be in contact when he's back in to kind of suss out with you guys of who might fit the bill and is willing to serve.
No, that's very helpful. And I think that was what we suspected because we had looked at these bullet points, but I'll take that back to Chris Callahan and the rest of the Extension team, and then I guess we'll work with Steve and you all on the board to sort it out.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And the last replacement, so Ryan Rebozo is still a member. However, he has asked, is just recognizing that he has taken a lot more on his plate within Vermont Center for Eco Studies. And so we will be also finding a replacement for Ryan as time goes on, but he's a full member, serving member until that happens, which we are very thankful for. So I think that was kind of nuts and bolts. We'll get a little bit more into nuts and bolts of next meetings and things like that, just because we separated it out for a separate topic to discuss at the end of the meeting about planning for next year. So I'll wait on that. So the next thing that we wanted to talk about, and I'm going to call on my colleague Zach to give us an update on what we have been working on for a long time. We know we've been following up in, which is the proposed rule for the best management practices for neonic treated seeds and neonic pesticides. And so, Zach, if you want to give a quick kind of where we're at with that.
Yep. So we have submitted our final proposed rulemaking filing set with the Secretary of State's office and the Legislative Committee on Administrative Rules. The filing packet and all the additional documents were submitted on Friday afternoon. And I have received word from the committee assistant of LCAR that tentatively scheduled for an LCAR hearing on January 8th. And then, moving forward, we desire approval from the committee. And that's, we'll go from there. And then, if approved, then we move towards filing an adopted rule filing set and so on. So that's about all the information is available on the agency's website. If you go to the landing page, it is in the top right-hand corner under the it's like a box that says public comments opportunities. And within there is listed permits as well as the best management practices rule. Click on the link to the best management practices rule, and that will take you to the page where is posted all the information that was submitted to the Legislative Committee on Administrative Rules. And that is the update.
Thank you, Zach.
Yep.
All right, so that kind of is our update section. So today we're going to welcome two people to continue our learnings about ag plastic. So our first person is in the room here with us is Tom Gates, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what the Caring Dairy program of Ben & Jerry's has learned a little bit about ag plastics and what data they have. So Tom, I'm going to pass it to you, and feel free to give kind of more of an introduction of yourself. So
yeah, sure. Well, happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I've worked in Vermont agriculture for a number of years, a number of different capacities. Years ago, I used to work for St. Albans Cooperative as a membership director. I did that for over 10 years. And then I've worked with the Unilever Ben & Jerry's since I think 2016. And right now I'm responsible for the dairy programming that we have at Ben & Jerry's, both here in the US as well as in Europe, where we have a sister program over there called Caring Dairy. And so I've got just a few slides to share around our program, and then some of the light touch work that we've done around ag plastics. So I will. Oh, thanks. I will. This pops up. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So for those of you who may not know, as a maker of ice cream, Ben & Jerry's primary ingredient is butterfat. And so when you look at a gallon of milk from farms, it's really kind of that in the pie chart here, really that yellow sliver is the primary ingredient we're buying in the form of cream, which usually contains approximately 40% butter fat. So Caring Dairy, back in the early 2000s, before, I guess I would say sustainability was as big of a term as it's become, we really, at that time, were looking for different types of practices on the dairies that we work with and that were supplying us to figure out, what are the kind of some of the key indicators to look at a farm to really evaluate sustainability. And over the years, there's been, adoptions, I should say, and evolutions within the program. But really, since 2011 here in the States, particularly here in Vermont, and we work with a few farms in northeastern New York, we really have a holistic practice-based program that looks at really kind of 4 different areas on the dairies that we work with that really look to incorporate environmental and animal care standards, farm worker standards. For those of you who may not be familiar with Ben & Jerry's, we're progressive dairy brand, ice cream maker, and have a history of leadership in the dairy space, whether it was back in the 90s around our BGH positioning.
Dwayne, milk with dignity, thank you very much.
Thank you. Our relationship in 2018 that began with the Milk with Dignity program and a variety of different areas where we've really tried to kind of lead the dairy industry in exploring new and effective ways to achieve a variety of different impacts. I would say the big one right now is how do we reduce on-farm emissions. A little bit of the scope. We work with roughly 50 farms, a little over 20,000 cows. Number of that's actually hectares, not acres, in the program around grass, corn, and then certainly a unique thing to Vermont in the Northeast is there's a lot of natural areas on farms, whether it's forests, wetlands, things of that nature. So when we talk about the pillars, really the dignified livelihoods for farmers as well as farm workers is really that first pillar. On the farm worker side, we work in the Milk Dignity program. And then we have elements of the program, including, annual incentives for the farmers that participate in our programming. Second pillar is really around animal welfare, animal care. It's, one of the biggest things that we get asked about as a brand. And so we work here in the U.S. with a third-party standard currently, a Global Animal Partnership. The third pillar is really around trying to build soil health. It's around trying to protect water quality and taking aspects of regenerative agriculture to reduce reliance on additional inputs. Not necessarily eliminating, but reducing to the extent that we can, optimizing, looking at ways to build, increase carbon sequestration, and then trying to look at what makes the most sense in terms of maximizing the amount of homegrown feed on the farm. Our newest pillar is around low carbon farming, and that really is around trying to reduce on-farm emissions for those folks that we work with. And so I should add that here in the U.S., we operate under a system where we want to have the equivalent volume of milk participating in our Caring Dairy program. It doesn't necessarily mean that every drop of dairy participating in Caring Dairy goes into individual pints. So just to make that distinction, we're by a component. We don't buy farm milk per se. Somebody else has to do something to it first. Some of our impacts of the farms we work with, 75% of the corn acres are covered cropped. We have now over half of our farms certified to the GAP standard. All the farms are third-party audited annually, and over 85% of the acres, the corn acres, are planted either with minimum or no-till practices. So that's just a little bit of background on what we do within Caring Dairy. when we really kind of hone in on the topic today. Every year, farmers that participate in the program are asked to fill out several metric questions. And a few years ago, we were curious about, what are farms doing with ag plastics? So I don't know that there was, we just asked them a very basic question around this, but we have a little bit of insight that we thought would hopefully be helpful to share for this committee. And so simply put, the question we asked is, do you recycle any of your ag plastics? And if you do, what are you doing with it? How are you recycling it? And so that, it's bunker plastic, bale wrap, plastic drums for cleaning chemicals, things of that nature. Yes.
Bunker plastic, could you delve a little bit further on that?
Yeah, so bunker plastic is for the covering of like chopped grasses or corn silage, where you put it into a big pile and then you're basically covering it. Yeah.
Thank you.
And so we've asked this question for several years. Usually we ask the question in the winter after the year transpired or took place. And so, what we've seen is from the data is that there has been an increase in the amount of ag plastics that are being recycled. And we think that we have a hypothesis on why that is, and which I can get to on the next slide. But you'll see over the last 4 years, some of the changes. We started in 2022 when folks were just reporting, and this is all self-reported information by the farms, where 17 of the farms that we worked with were recycling ag plastics. That number grew to 32 over the 4-year period. And where we see the growth, when you kind of break it down into the different categories, is the number of plastic drums that are being recycled has increased actually quite a lot over the course of the last 4 years. So why do we think that is? And this is, again, we haven't dove into the topic all that deep, other than trying to get information from farms that we work with. And what we've learned is that with the plastic barrels, typically, or oftentimes, some of the suppliers that are selling the barrels have a rebate program for returning them and reusing them. And a lot of this has to do with milking equipment and parlor cleaning chemicals. From our understanding, not necessarily like tractor gear oils, but more so some of the chemicals used for cleaning on the farms. As it relates to bale wrap and bunker covers, which are other 2 major plastic uses on the farms, what we find is that generally there's more plastic used in bale wrap than bunker covers, and that's simply because it takes more plastic to wrap a bunch of potential round bales, as opposed to covering a bunker of chopped grass or corn silage. So again, this was something that we asked the farmers to share information on as part of the Caring Dairy program, but wanted to take the opportunity to share the little bit of knowledge that we gained as part of that process with the committee after talking to Morgan about it a few months ago. So. And that's what I had.
I have a question. So have you had 25 numbers up there, so you already asked them for this past year?
I need to shift the years. That was information that was asked this year for 2024. That's 2024 numbers.
Okay.
We'll be getting the 2020 that we'll be getting the 2025 numbers in January, first quarter of 26. I realized that as I was talking through it, that I got to shift all my years over one.
No, that's okay. That's actually, so I have a reason for asking this. So the AIB is, required to survey farmers every year.
Yep.
So if we wanted to ask one more thing or something, do you think you would be willing to add a question to your survey? Not that I have one in mind.
Possibly, I guess. What do you want to ask?
I don't know. Any members want to know something else, or or to gauge? I don't know if you could get at willingness to participate in a program, or
obstacles.
Yeah, obstacles, something like that. Just to call out what, maybe just a multiple choice so we could prioritize obstacles to a recycling program or participation in a recycling program or something like that. Yeah, Leon, go ahead.
Yeah, I've talked to quite a few farmers about this. And with bale wrap and ag bag plastic and bunker covers, the real problem is trying to get it clean enough. Typically, you're feeding these products during fall, winter, and spring on a lot of farms, those that graze their cattle. And it's really difficult to get the plastic clean. You're dealing with mud and snow, and not only that, but trying to get all of the feed out of the product. So those that do recycle, it would be very interesting to the rest of us how they get the plastic clean enough on a regular basis to be acceptable to anyone willing to recycle it.
Yeah, and you did have some people are saying that they are recycling bale wrap.
We have a handful that have indicated that. I will say, I mean, again, this is more anecdotal. I 100% agree that cleaning the plastic is the trickiest piece, because most places won't take dirty plastic for recycling type processes. And you can have the cleanest farm in the world, and that ag plastic, I mean, stuff just, it gets on it. Just simply does, just by the nature of how it's utilized.
Yeah. Can you go back to the slide of what the other types of plastic was? Bale wrap, bunker wrap.
The slide with the information. Yeah.
Yeah.
Drums and other.
That was
Yep.
It was other.
Yep. Let's see.
I was just wondering if it was something that wasn't on our radar yet about.
It was bunker plastic, bale wrap, and plastic drums. I'm not sure what the other is. It's something that I could follow up on, but it looks like it's been hit or miss. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess the members that are here, is there something? So Leon, how those that are recycling bale wrap, how are they cleaning it? Or even just how are they recycling it?
Yeah, who are they recycling?
Might be beneficial for us both. I would think maybe, well, I don't know, I guess it's 7 and 3, or I mean, whether it's two separate recycling options between bale wrap and bunker plastic.
Yeah,
I would have lumped those, but
well, I suspect that probably some of the farm that are using bale wrap may not be using bunker plastic, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll have folks that'll be using both, but also it's sometimes one or the other. And we did not include ag bags on the list. So again, this was about kind of gathering information to see, what types of activities, farms were doing, and we're very pleasantly surprised that the farms we work with without any requirements in this space were, looked like they were making a great effort to try to do some recycling. So very happy about that.
Yeah, so maybe if, do you think are you limited to multiple choice, or can we have one free form of how are you recycling the bale wrap, or like a program, or I don't know how to get that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in terms of metric questions that we've asked over the years, generally, if you give some options, you get more responses. If you leave kind of an open-ended question, there certainly will be folks that enter something in. But I think that if there was to be a question asked around, what are you doing specifically on it, you may just want to think through kind of whether or not you give what the available options are, then maybe another category where they can add in something that maybe hasn't been thought of what they're doing.
Oh, I guess I was stuck in Vermont, but we're all over, right? What's your span? It's like national, right?
For here in the U.S., it's primarily Vermont,
Okay.
And then there's just a handful of farms in northeastern New York.
Okay. So it is still pretty local.
Yeah,
We're not.
Yeah,
okay.
for sure.
How many questions do you ask on us? Like when that survey goes out, is it, I just want to be sensitive. It's your survey.
Yeah.
Make sure that we're not like creating a.
Yeah. There's a lot. There's over 100.
Oh, okay.
There's over 100 metric questions.
Okay.
So it's, I think that, it's something that we can consider. We probably would want to maybe keep it to one additional if possible.
Okay. Yeah. One.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's okay. Do you ask any in those metrics? Do you ask any other like ag input questions other than disposal stuff?
We ask questions. This is the only one specific to ag plastics.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're asking.
Like synthetic fertilizer, pesticides, anything.
Yeah, I think in terms of the metric questions, I think a lot of it is on animal health, cropping practices, manure management practices, things along those lines.
Right. Notes in it. Maybe if we have one great question, we might hit you up to include it, but I don't know if we can or not, or if we can nail it down, or whether, I don't know, our members here wanting to know. It's just such a great data source, and for us to try and get at, with this whole separate survey, it's the same thing as participation, right? Like these people are very busy and we don't need to take their time, and for us to have to do it every year is taxing already on that. So it's been a little bit of AIB's mindset of to piggyback on questions they're already having to answer and seeing if we can glean information from that without having to bug them again.
Sure.
That's kind of the angle we're coming at, rather than us being like, here's the AIB survey,
Right,
one of
separate survey.
50 that you have to complete this year, So
well, definitely appreciate that approach, because we do try to limit the amount of time we take with the farms on the data collection piece. It's a part of it, but it's we try to be as efficient as we can in that space.
Yeah. Ditto. Yeah, so just as far as this, like, or if we can glean information from yours, but I know it's hard, whether it's your data, it's your thing, so we greatly appreciate.
We would never share any individual information. It would all.
Oh, yeah,
be
yeah, yeah,
yours.
no, that's fine.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the way that the requirement is written, it says from every county in Vermont. So trying to show the breadth that you're surveying of participants. So that would be like the most granular we would be looking for in a survey that we would do, or as far as location by county, the kind of information, not any other identifiable.
I think that we could tell you what counties are covered.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we'd be able to go as far as give you like the number of responses by county.
Oh, yeah. No, we've never actually filtered by that, just to show exactly what you're saying.
The county was covered.
Yeah. Yeah, covered, representing participants from,
5 counties.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
Yep.
whatever.
counties, yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. Any other questions for Tom while we have them from members? Well, thank you very much. That is very useful. And yes, I think our action item might be to, if we have an additional one, or just if we can talk through once you see that, if there's anything that we can just glean from any other questions that you're already asking, that might help us for any of our future requirements or recommendations that we have to make, that maybe we can alleviate the survey requests on our farmers in the region.
If that's something that's going to be your request, I would just ask that it's fairly soon, because we're hoping to start collecting data. Usually January, February, March is when we're trying to collect information.
Yeah.
Just because it's the time when it's not as busy as it usually is, potentially. So
are you able to share like an example 100 questions with me, or whatever?
we haven't made the list of metric questions public.
Okay. Okay. All right. I think that if we, if we can come up with an example of, to find out, with questions of how they're recycling that failed plastic, or how they're getting it clean enough, to Leon's point, or something like that. I just need to wrap my head around it. I can't do it right now.
Yeah.
But I think that would be where we're at right now, as far as kind of completing this recommendation that we would have for ag plastics. But we will do it
soon.
All right. Anything else before I see Zach Bierman has joined us? And so he is our next topic. So to keep on learning about ag plastic recycling. And so Zach, if you want to give us an introduction of yourself, and just with great appreciation for you joining us today and sharing what you guys have learned from your pilot programs. But so the floor is yours.
Awesome. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Lucky I figured out that this was a different time zone than I'm in, so I made it on time. No, it's okay. I was like, I think I'm supposed to present at 1:40, but I better look and see if the time zone is correct. So I was, I'm Central Time Zone. But anyway, I introduced myself. My name is Zach Bierman. I work for Organic Valley in the carbon insetting program. I have worked for Organic Valley for almost 30 years. I started in 1996 in maintenance. I did that for 17 years. And then while in maintenance meant you did a lot of different things, but my job is progressed into sustainability, into the carbon insetting world. And so over the years, I had done a lot of different work with ag plastic. I was the boots on the ground type of person where I was going out to farms and helping collect and looking for different places to recycle it, or vendors or balers. And so I had to dig way back deep into our archives of information, because we haven't done any work with ag plastic for a little while. But I prepared a small slide deck for you all to share with you, just a few slides on some of the things we worked on. So I will share my screen now. My little dog's whining in the background like crazy. Not sure why. Can you all see my second screen there now? The one with the says program wins at the top. I gotta go back to the top. Okay.
Yes, yep.
Okay. So this is my introduction slide or whatever. My name is Zach. And then I have just an agenda slide here. So it talks a little bit about the things that we're going to talk about. There's just like 5 or 6 slides here. So really it's an open-ended conversation with a couple of slides. So one thing I don't know if you guys have been talking a lot about, but our most successful program at Organic Valley was in vegetable plastic mulch. So one thing we noticed here in Wisconsin was in throughout the country, but was the use of plastic mulch, and it was really hard to get rid of. It's very dirty, and farmers are doing all kinds of awful things with it. So we really focused in on back in 2013 that there was this real need to help those farms find a way to get rid of to recycle that plastic. So we put out we put out dumpsters. So one of the questions you all had for me was that, like, what does some of this stuff cost, or what did we invest into it? So in 2013 we put out dumpsters at 10 different dumpster locations. Organic Valley was share costing those dumpsters with the sustainability department was sharing the cost with the vegetable program. So we had 110 farms who were feeding ag plastic, vegetable mulch plastic into those dumpsters over those 10 sites. And we collected over 260 tons of plastic and had that shipped off to recycling centers up in Minneapolis that would have that stuff made into different products that they then marketed and sold as recycled plastic products. So the total cost for that 9-year study or pilot program, it ended up running for 9 years. We spent $44,000. So it was pretty reasonable, actually, $4,000 to $5,000 a year. We had a location for 110 of those vegetable farmers to be feeding into those dumpsters and collected all that plastic and had it recycled. Those farms have continued to utilize that same system, but they now fund it and pay for it themselves. We don't help them pay for it any longer. I don't know if you have any more questions around vegetable plastic. Do you guys have a lot of vegetable plastic in Vermont, do you know of, or?
We definitely don't have any data on how much, but I would anecdotally say yes.
Yes, I would say yes too.
Yeah. So that's something to think about. I mean, to help, not to add more to your plate, but, or maybe you've already been thinking about it. I don't know, but there's also some more plastics. It's just like you start thinking about ag plastic, and I got a slide up here pretty soon. It shows all the different kinds. Go ahead.
I was wondering, you started off with the row crop cover is very dirty. So were there standards or requirements prior to those vegetable farmers putting that plastic into that dumpster?
Right. So they were supposed to put it in there as clean as possible, but the recycle company that we use for that developed a method of how to wash it, because all this plastic is extremely dirty. Like the cleanest stuff is perfect. The bag covers, the silage covers, that's what everybody wants. It's the cleanest plastic, but the reality is it's all extremely dirty. And the progressive recycle companies have developed methods to clean it. Just like recycling is going into your recycle bin now. It used to be you have to wash your peanut butter container out, but now they have systems to wash it out. But it's definitely a concern, but it's also like when you're choosing or when you're working to find these places that recycle it, and be like, oh, well, how clean does it have to be? You understand it's really dirty, and then you invest in washing it and stuff like that. But
Is that the shoot, I'm forgetting the name. The Revolution, is that Revolution Plastic? Is that who you're saying took this plastic, or is that different?
no, this was different. This was going a
Okay.
different direction. Yep, because this is black, and the Revolution plastic, they're taking dairy bag covers, but the bag, like the plastic film and stuff, the white film, that's going. It's really hard to find anybody to recycle that stuff. But I'll just skip ahead here to my next slide then. But I thought this was pretty.
Do you know who is taking this one, the black plastic, this veggie plastic? Do you know off the top of your head
I
who-
looked in our notes. I couldn't find it, but I can dig some more in there and help maybe get back to you about that.
That's okay. I was just going to reach out to them to kind of learn more about that cleaning process, because I think that's what we hear about the most is
right.
The hurdle of cleaning to acceptance of the plastic to be recycled. But
plus it added tons of hauling and everything. When you add a lot of dirt to it, it's like everything's heavier and harder to work with. It's more frozen. But yeah, so I do know that company that was taking that black plastic mulch, they were washing it before they recycled it. But how they were doing that, I don't know. It could be secret. I don't know. It shouldn't be, but it could be.
It could be.
Back in 2012, Organic Valley hired a company called Terracon to study ag plastic use on dairy farms. And I thought this was pretty interesting. I dug this up in our iDrive. So the study was done in 2012, and it's estimated that there was 264,000 pounds of plastic waste per year on a Wisconsin Organic Valley dairy farm. On average from 8 to 15 pounds per cow per year. Now, that's kind of a big range, and it depends on how these farms are farming, of course. But I just quickly surveyed a couple of my farmers that I talk to on a regular basis in this area, and they're pretty on point with that 8 to 10 to 12 pounds of plastic per year per cow. So that was around 33,000 cows in this study, which was about 250 Organic Valley dairy farms in the state of Wisconsin. So when you're thinking about, how many cows that you're working with in the state of Vermont, say that really adds up quickly into being a lot of plastic. And I wish it wasn't that way, right? But like we all know that these challenging environmental times, how hard it is for farmers to make quality feed. It's almost impossible without plastic anymore. It's just because of the weather events and cycles that we're working through. But yeah, so I thought that was pretty amazing. So I wonder if we did that now, what the number would be, because we all know even an organic, maybe not so much in Organic Valley, but dairy farms in general. I've lived here my whole life, and I know there's less dairy farms than there was then. There's less dairy farms now than there was then. So I bet you they're bigger, and you probably use more plastic per cow. I don't know. That'd be a guess, but yeah, I don't know. A lot of plastic out there. So this was an interesting slide. So this is all different types of plastic. So I found this is part of that study, the Terracon study, but I don't know if you can see it well enough from where you're sitting, but all these different kinds of plastic they're used in the agriculture industry. So like the triple rinse pesticide containers, which Organic Valley doesn't have those, but that's a big deal. I talked to a man that worked for like co-op that sprayed like a co-op that sprayed crops, and he told me that they had like semi-loads of empty containers every year that would have to get recycled, chipped. They would bring in a machine to chip them, and I never even thought about it. Like 2.5 gallon jugs or 5 gallon pails that chemicals come in, and he said we would have to wash them and clean them, but that's ag plastic. Irrigation tubing, which I thought was pretty. I didn't think about that, like as much irrigation tubing as there is in like nurseries or different things. Then all the different kinds of bale wrap, drip tape. One on here I thought about Vermont right away. Irrigation tubing and drip tape. Old maple tubing lines. How many millions of pounds of maple tubing lines you think are out there in the state of Vermont that have to be recycled and are clean, right? So like some of this stuff is, I know we're talking about dairy film primarily, but like all those folks need help with all this plastic, greenhouse covers, nice clean plastic, these drip tapes, the maple syrup lines, seedling plug trays. Think about how many of those there is out, to be recycled, and nursery pots and baling twine, feed bags, and silage bunker covers. Those are easy. Drip tape, maple tubing, all different types of plastics out there that are, being recycled or so like you could talk to like different places like, well, what do you do with all your your rinse jugs that are being chipped? Do they take ag plastic or yeah, it's just something more to think about, I guess. But I was pretty amazed by all these different types of plastic, thinking about what there all is. So and then I have this so Revolution Plastics, that was our solution to ag plastic on dairy farms. So these guys are, I didn't reach out to them, but I did call like 3 or 4 of my farms in this area that are using these Revolution plastic dumpsters for their silage bags, their bunker covers. And they all said, yep, they come 1 to 2 days, their dumpster's full, they call, they come out and pick it up. They scan the dumpster as they're dumping it into the trucks, and they know what's in there. So if there's farmers cheating or putting bale wrap or net wrap or something they're not supposed to be in there, they get a phone call like, hey, you can't put that in there anymore. So I hope you guys can find them out in Vermont. Now, I heard you said earlier you tried to call them with no response.
I did, yeah. So right now I have not been successful of contacting them, but I'm not going to give up quite yet. But
yeah, well, it sounds like they're still running, they're still operating, they're still collecting plastic. This is a free service they provide in the Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota tri-state area. They put these dumpsters on the farm. They don't charge for pickup. I kind of wish they did charge a little bit for pickup. It seems like it would make them more responsible or more reliable or have more money generated to be able to, more enthusiasm maybe to keep going or growing. But I know that my guys that use these, my farm firms that use this, they'd gladly pay to have these tipping fees at their farm because they just love the idea of it's getting recycled and reused,
So anybody, sorry, I just had a logistics question. So
go ahead.
In that tri-state area, so any farm can call them and say, hey, come bring a dumpster.
Yep.
And then they come and bring it, and then however long it takes for the farmer to fill it, and then they say, come pick it up, and then that's
the farmer call, and they just keep it there. Then, like, if you're an actively running dairy farm and you're using that plastic, they put the dumpster out there, and then you fill it. You call 1 to 2 days later, they come pick it up, and they just keep it going like that for years and years. These guys have been using it since 2021. I haven't really had anything to do with any of this stuff, and so I called some of those farms that are still using these dumpsters, and they said, nope, so everything's going smooth. Happy to be still doing it. So
Awesome. Right.
Yeah, and then this was at one time we traveled around and went to some places that were recycling ag plastic, and that's my hand with a handful of this shredded plastic. And then this was next to it was a sidewalk paver, and this was at a park in Racine, and they were making these sidewalk pavers and replacing cement with them. And for years I had this biodiesel program going out where I would travel the country and teach farmers about how to make their own biodiesel. And I had one of those pavers with me all the time, and I looked for it. I couldn't find it. We must have finally recycled it too. But uses for recycled plastic, of course, are these cement plastic pavers, fence posts, decking, parking lot curbs. It'd be nice if they could just make it right back into ag plastic bags, but they don't. I really think that the big picture of all this recycling, and I've thought it for a really long time, is the fact that until we hold plastic companies accountable for their life cycle and now their life cycle of the plastic they're producing to find sources to reuse it, we're just fighting a battle that is really hard to win. I thought of an idea at one time, like we could put like a redemption fee on plastic, like they do aluminum cans or tin cans or different things, different places. Be like, so like if farmers did a good job with their plastic and cleaned it up, and they could get money back for recycling it properly. But I think that, there's just, it's going to be challenging until the plastic companies are held a little bit accountable for what they're producing and the amount of pollution that they're creating. In the name of making good quality feed, right? So like it's a sensitive area, but
I think we do have a question, Zach. Leon,
Yep.
if you want to ask your question.
Hi, Zach. This is Leon Course. You may recognize my name. I'm an
I do.
Organic Valley farmer. And
Yes.
I am on this board.
Okay.
And my question has to do with the cleanliness of the ag plastic. We had a pilot program in Vermont probably 8 or 10 years ago, and part of why it got shut down was because the plastic wasn't clean enough
Right.
coming from the farm. So I wondered whether that's an issue with the way this is utilized out there, or whether the company has figured out some way to deal with the lack of cleanliness.
Well, it's wonderful to hear from you, Leon. But I, from what I understand, is the recycling company has found a way to wash it and clean it. What that looks like, I don't know, but that's what I understand. They do want you to keep it as clean as possible, but they do understand that you are collecting plastic that's been on a farm, and they've designed some type of mechanical washing systems. I think it could be done after it's shredded like that, and then it gets washed, but I don't know. I don't imagine they're holding up big plastic sheets and then they're like pressure washing. I imagine it's very mechanically advanced.
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Leon, I'll take the action item and try and get hold of Revolution Plastic, and maybe they can explain that more and kind of talk about how they're using the inputs that they're getting from those dumpsters and how they're cleaning it and making it acceptable for their use.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Sean, do you have a question?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I loved your point about holding the plastic companies accountable, and that actually ties back to the hydrocarbon oil industry and holding them accountable.
Right.
But I was curious. You mentioned they don't just recycle it back into ag plastic. And I was wondering if there was a particular reason for that. Is it because the cleaning process maybe alters the plastic, or?
Well, right. So from what I understand is like this, it's so cheap to make plastic from new oil, right, and new petroleum products, that by the time you add the cost of recycling it back, it doesn't financially make sense for them, right, for these plastic companies, like, to make new or recycled plastic available to farms. So it's too cheap to make it out of new oil. And I'm sure,
Yep.
I'm sure it's subsidized in so many ways. It's like, who knows what the whole pyramid scheme looks like, but that's typically why recycled products cost more. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the question. So I listed out a few of our program challenges here that we saw over the years. Now you can see us there. That photo is a photo of a ag plastic baler workshop that we were at. So the early days, there was these workshops around the country, and farms could get these little balers put on their farm, and they could, because one of the challenges with ag plastic is it's big, right? When it's a big mess, it's like all over the place, and you can take a pickup load of it and not have very much of it. So the solution to it is to bale it down. So there was companies traveling around putting on these baler workshops and renting or leasing farms these ag plastic balers to deal with it. Before the revolution, plastics dumpsters were available. But I used to go around and pick those bales up, haul them to Minneapolis on a gooseneck trailer, drop them off at the recycle center. We're so dedicated in this, but so I listed a few of our program challenges here. The high cost. So it's like we talked about, it costs a lot of money. Recycling ag patch is expensive. Transportation, cleaning, all the things. The second biggest program challenge was contamination, which we talked a lot about. Cleanliness, it's still a challenge today. I feel like some of that has been the solutions we found is our recyclers have found ways to wash it and clean it. Collection logistics, these farms are spread out over different terrain, far apart, hard to get to, but so that's where we came into play with those 10 sites for those farms. We couldn't put a dumpster on 110 farms, but we could put 10 dumpsters on 10 farms, right? And then their neighbors could all gather around and collect and bring their plastic in there and put it in the dumpster. So that's something to think about, like, collaborating with different communities or groups to set up dumpsters in different locations. So I know that, like, my townships all around here still have ag plastic dumpsters at the township building that anybody can bring ag plastic and put it in their township. So volumes of use. Farms still use a lot of plastic. Something I didn't talk about in this slide deck, but some information that I dug up looking into this was we did a paper mulch trial. So we were in the vegetable plastic. We did a bunch of work with a paper company that made paper mulch. I think that there still needs to be effort being put into alternatives to plastic. Fund. Just we need to keep working toward other things than plastic. So, bringing silos back on the farm, paper mulch from plastic in the mulch and the mulch industry rather than plastic, or just something, right? It's like, think outside the box on some of this stuff and fund concrete bunkers, or just more help to make awareness that you don't just have to cover the earth in plastic, and like, can you reuse any of this stuff yourself? Like, sometimes the best answers are what you're doing. You could just reuse something on your own farm, but yeah, so, and then limited alternatives. That's the other problem, like I'm just saying now, like, we have very limited products to, biodegradable stuff breaks down. We're looking for long term, but we don't want it to last forever. It's just, you know, some of it we've created these problems ourselves, right? By wanting to go faster, farther, you know, like get more done with less, but plastic still keeps to be a cheap alternative. And yeah, so but our wins, so here's our program wins. We got these beautiful children playing on some ag plastic bales, but you know, this through that vegetable trial, we were able to, you know, try that paper mulch, and we did get 260 tons of plastic recycled through our program. And that program is still continuing to run today. We're not tracking it because we're not helping pay for it any longer, but we connected hundreds and hundreds of farms to recycling companies. So and manufacturers recycle plastic and products, which highlight the closed loop systems. So we do have tons of plastic being recycled every year. So our work didn't go without merit, but yeah, so that's about all the information I have for you today that I was able to dig up and to talk about it. Do we have any other other questions you guys have for me?
I did have one other question, and is I think about that vegetable plastic mulch. So you guys no longer have to fund it.
Yep.
Does that mean, so the farms that are running it,
They're
they
paying
get
for it
enough
themselves.
money back? They get enough money back from selling it to the recycle companies to be able to sustain it?
And I don't
Am
think they get any money.
I-
They don't get any money back. They just, it's part of doing business. It's just they share the cost in it, and Organic Valley doesn't subsidize it or pay for it any longer. But those farms are still utilizing it. No, I don't believe they're getting any money back, or it's not valuable, but it also is a way that, you know, like they have to do something with it. So they either, you know, they pay those tipping fees themselves rather than ask for us to help pay for it.
Okay, they're probably paying to dispose of it, where
Yeah.
they're paying to recycle it. They're just paying, and then but they maybe feel better about recycling it. That's my
Right.
interpretation.
I see.
It's not
Okay.
going to, as far as I know, it's not going into a landfill. It's going up to this recycle place in Minneapolis. I was taking it for years and years, but
And I
that's
think
also,
what they have is, sorry,
No.
they have a market for the plastic, and I think we're
Right.
struggling to establish a market
Yeah.
in
Right.
Vermont. And so
That's right. Leon.
Yeah, I just wondered, Zach, if you've heard of, there's a net wrap product that's biodegradable that I have just learned about, but I have some concerns that it's going to degrade on the bales. And I
Right.
wondered if that's anything you had any information about.
I don't have any information about it. I did just hear about it though. I think we got a call in, or there was like an email or something about it, that they were working on getting it certified organic to be able to use on farms. See, a lot of that biodegradable stuff is not, since it can actually break down into the soil, it becomes a soil amendment. So then it has to get approved for use on an organic farm, which is, and that's the same way with like that biodegradable vegetable mulch plastic too. That stuff breaks down into the soil, and then it voids your certification for being organic. So that's something Leon, that's something to think about. But typically, you're right. Anything that's biodegradable doesn't last long enough to get the feed in the cows, you know. But I'm not gonna say that what these folks are doing now wouldn't work. I haven't seen it yet. But I do know that there is some question about it being certified organic, and they're working on that right now, getting that approved for testing and trials. So thank you for that question.
Any other questions for Zach about all that they've learned and all their ag plastic trials in Wisconsin and beyond? Well,
Interesting.
yeah. Thank you, Zach. I really, really appreciate you digging through the archives of Organic
Yeah.
Valley for us. This is definitely, it's been a great connection. So thank you for
Wonderful.
joining us and and we'll keep you posted the more we learn. If we learn more about, that Nature's Net Wrap, we did have them in to talk.
Okay.
So it's good to hear that maybe they're pursuing organic certification. And so if as we go farther down that route, as far as I think that's one gap we have in our recommendation process, is kind of identifying these alternatives and or even just research that's been going on about alternatives. So as we learn, we'll definitely keep you posted too, so we can keep our conversation open and we can keep learning together.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, I really appreciate you folks putting effort into ag plastic and learning ways to recycle it in your state. It's so important. It's such important work. And I feel like some of it has slipped through the cracks around here, because of changing times, and everybody goes through different stresses and pressures to get different things done. And it was really fun to look back in those archives and remember that work that we did and how innovative and cutting, we were really ahead of our time. So anything I can ever do in the future to help you, I'd love to help. So thank you all for your time and the efforts you're putting toward this project.
Thank you so much, Zach. And thanks for your time today.
Okay, have a great rest of the day. Yep, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Yep, bye.
Okay, so shifting gears a little bit, I'm going to share my screen, and I sent this out to members a few weeks ago. So we do an annual report every year. It's due to the legislature by January 15th. And so we have a draft report that tries to summarize everything we've done in this year. And so I asked for you guys to review it. I didn't get any comments on it. I do know Pam said she was going to review it, Pam Wadman, but she's out of office this week. So just the quick rundown. So how it's structured is just spells out when we've met. And then it talks about how we've met our survey requirement. And so this year we had those two kind of like the same questions were to participate of different farmers. So one was at the ag pest applicators meeting. And then the second part of it was through a high tunnel survey through UVM extension. And so what came out of those surveys was the majority of participants identified that the ag input they were most concerned about having an environmental impact is ag waste. So I think that was kind of echoed by what Zach was just saying, and about the disposal of things that are no longer needed, like tires or plastic on farm. And so that's how we got into this vein and these requirements. Asked of AIB. And so I think I called that. So the two, I can make this bigger. I'm sorry, it's this small. So from the creation of the Ag Innovation Board, of our list of mandates, the two that we are focusing on are number 5 and number 12. And so they are recommended practices to reduce the use and generation of waste associated with plastic in farming. And then also study and issue recommendations regarding the feasibility of the use of biodegradable plastics in agriculture and the promotion of the use of and production of biodegradable plastics in similar products in Vermont. So that's kind of what we've been working on, and then, so after the survey that says, okay, what have we done, right? So we've met here, and so they're grouped by basically our learnings relevant to ag plastic by meeting date, and then our learnings relevant to neonics, which is always on our plate, and will continue to be for 2026 as well. So basically just summary by meeting of everything we've heard relevant to this. So people from DEC talked, we've had people from recycling companies, we've had Clean Farms come a couple times. And so basically these are just summaries of what we've heard and what we've learned. So then after this, then we have, okay, we're still addressed some new nicotinoid relevant information. So we continue to learn from Dr. Heather Darby's research on this, and that will continue into 2026, which we'll get at kind of at the end of the report. And we also heard from our own Ryan Rebozo about pollinator research. That was this year. And so how I framed this, so the annual report is a way for us to kind of summarize any recommendations that we have. Members who are present, please let me know if you think we're done with plastics, but I was making the assumptions that we weren't completely done addressing those two mandates. So I was framing this as preliminary recommendations. So based on what we've learned so far, but we still need to do more. So these I just pulled out of kind of from the presentations we heard, key learnings, basically. So obviously this can be neatened up and written more in paragraph form, but I wanted, for our sake of discussion, of so things I called out that we learned, I think, from Clean Farms was, if it is a policy, make sure it has a long enough lead time to actually be able to pull together an extended producer responsibility program. So make sure it has a long enough lead time. We learned a lot about kind of this model of having a producer responsibility organization, or a PRO. So that's an example of what Clean Farms is in Canada. So basically they're like a middleman and helping producers be in compliance with any policy that requires them to follow an extended, what is that?
Extended producer responsibility.
I keep saying ERP in my things, but you know my dyslexia here. And so basically calling out I think we've heard about the benefit of having a PRO, that middleman, is so that it kind of pulls together and makes it more of an efficient process. So it pulls together volume, it pulls together collection sites, it makes it a little more practical. Is what we learned from Clean Farms. As far as if you are looking down the policy road, I think we've learned that involving producers early in any policy development will help knowing your data. So conducting ag waste studies to kind of quantify what we are working with. So that we heard a little bit about that. We got a little data on that today. But definitely not framed in this specific, policy recommendation. But I think more data would be needed. Alternatives, I think we've only really heard a little from that Nature's Net Wrapped. I haven't been that successful of finding like I've tried to go down the academic research route, and I haven't found quite yet any researchers that are out there doing alternative trials. But I think that's an area of next year. Maybe we can try and find more of that. Sorry, I'll let whoever's in. So, yeah, I think for policy recommendations. So I think if you don't have the participation, the financial strain is there. So I think it was encouraging to hear from Zach to say like, hey, like we no longer fund this, but it's still happening.
It's still happening. Yeah.
I think that's super encouraging. I think that these policies that we learned about, like through the Quebec regulations presentation that we heard, it definitely was evident that the finance around any policy is important to nail down and build in any enforcement capabilities or something like that to kind of ensure that you have a budget remaining for the program. So I don't know if board members have any other things that they want to call out, or maybe anything that we learned today. This was definitely written before today, that you want to call out as a preliminary recommendation for addressing, a practice to reduce ag plastic waste, right? So it can be anything from a policy recommendation or just having a pilot programs that we've learned about. Go ahead, Leon.
I'm wondering if there would be some benefit to looking back at the pilot program that occurred in Vermont to see what was the downfall of it and how that might be managed around. I think I remember I participated, and I think I remember that Casella Waste Management was involved in the project. So they may have some records about why it didn't go beyond a pilot project.
Yep, I was just looking through a report because I wrote that down somewhere, but I think I wanted to write that down. Yeah, I think it was for the planning for 2026. I do want to take that as an action item to try and connect with Casella to see if we can learn more about it, or data. But yes, so I hear you, Leon. And the other thing is we did hear really quickly from Mike Snow, who was starting a new pilot program. I don't know if any of you remember that. We heard it a while back, and it was kind of saying, hey, they just got a grant to try and start a new pilot program. So I did also want to check back in with him to kind of see how it's going. So two things: one, to learn from the past, and then this new one is kind of check in on it. But Jonathan, did you have?
To me, having an end use for the recycled product is probably the missing piece. I mean, you can recycle it, but if you've got to send it to Minneapolis to get recycled, it's an issue.
Yeah.
I think it's the market. I think that was the challenge, but I can go back and look as well and see if I can find documentation of the original pilot project that involved Casella as well. Because I feel like we have a draft report on that. But yes, I think it's the market, like a ready market regionally nearby, that creates the resin that then is making money from making the resin from the recycled plastic to then turn it into other products.
Even if you paid something to have it recycled, or it was no cost to recycle, that's better than the alternative to pay to put it in a dumpster and send it down the road. There's a cost to it no matter what.
There's a cost, yeah. Yeah.
One of the products that I found intriguing, I was on a trip actually with Organic Valley to California some years ago. And at the time, there was a company out there that was making replacement sidewalk panels. When a concrete one would crack or break, they would put these plastic ones in to replace it. And I actually walked on some of them, and it's hard to tell them from the concrete one. And that seems like a really great use for them. And of course, sidewalks exist anywhere in the country. But obviously the missing link is how do you get from the ag plastic to the sidewalk panel?
Right, having that, yeah, company. So the only recycled company that we've heard from is RPM Eco so far.
Yeah.
But their wheelhouse, if you guys remember, was more containers. So speaking of, I mean, Zach talked about it, and we've talked about it before, is our pesticide containers. But I think also they do oil containers.
They do containers that have toxic material. Now, I'm not sure if that's the right term. Materials that are otherwise like oil containers and pesticides,
Controlled disposal.
Yeah.
I guess.
And they work with ACRC, which is the Ag Container Recycling Council, which is a middleman for or middle organization for the recycling of pesticide containers. And Mark Hudson's I believe the executive director, and they take the resin and produce products, again, recycled plastic products that are suitable for the type of plastic being a pesticide container. So it's not anything that comes into contact with food or water, like it's a specialty plastic product that's suitable to come from a pesticide container that won't impact the health and safety or impact the environment. But they have that full cycle, like what you're saying, like they market the plastic, they create the resin, or they have the system or the knowledge about how that system works to result in the product on the other end.
Okay, I know. I'm trying to write those down as far as like things we might need to know more about, right? So, are there any other things we've heard already that I might not have captured here that I'll write up nice and pretty, but. So we'll add something about, the available, it almost seems like Wisconsin was so successful because they had a readily available market that wanted
their plastic. Yeah.
So benefit, it was win-win, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's it's not ag plastic, but there's other examples. So my understanding is Trex has single-use plastic, probably less so in Vermont now, but containers at grocery stores that you can recycle your plastic, and then they make them into the Trex wood decking, fake decking, plastic decking products. But again, but a different kind of plastic.
So that's in Vermont now?
Yes.
So that's the plastic bags.
That's plastic bags. Yep. Yep.
Are those still in grocery stores, even though now we don't have that? We don't have plastic bags?
Yeah, there were some in Price Chopper,
Okay.
Market 32 on Shelburne Road. You can go in and dump your plastic bags. It's a lot of plastic, but not all plastic will fit in there.
I think it's a certain kind
of
of
wrap meats in is a heavier plastic, and I don't think that goes in there.
Don't know about that. But Trex, I've reached out to them because I used to have one, I'm sorry, Carol.
Oh, well, I guess my question is, as part of this report, do you have all of the things that are happening in Europe in a list? Because Europe is doing all kinds of very interesting things. So when you say you're not aware of it, what research are you doing?
So this report is just what we've done in 2025. So.
And did you look at Europe?
So we haven't gone outside of our region and so expanding into Canada. to date. That doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It is up to members. We can keep looking. I think so. Right now, I'm going to focus us right exactly on this report of what we've learned in 2025. If there's any other preliminary recommendations that the members want to make, as far as what we've learned, and then members, we can discuss what we still need to do for 2026. What more do we want to learn in order to make a full recommendation to address those R2 ag plastic requirements outlined in statute for AIB. And so great, we'll take that suggestion. We will recognize that we can expand our searching to beyond. And then, so I think that I'm just gonna go back to members and ask, so any preliminary of what we've heard, right, to date. Anything else we wanna get in there right now? I did just have a thought too of, which we did hear from a couple presentations, is that the movement of state legislations to have requirements for a certain percentages of recycled material or post-consumer material in products that are being made. Do you guys remember hearing that? So certain, like California, of course, has one. If it's not already in the books, it's almost there, or has been proposed, and it's increasing the amount of plastic that has to be post-consumer material that is in newly made plastic. So as a regulation, they're saying if you're going to make a plastic, you need to have X amount of post-consumer material be part of that plastic. So introduce legislation that includes that requirement can then up the demand for recycled material, right? So if they are required to have a certain percentage of post-consumer material in their products, then the demand will be higher. So then maybe that will increase the market for, right? So maybe we'll get more people seeking recycled material to recycle. So I do think that is something that I'm not sure that I captured, but so introduce legislation about requirements for post-consumer material.
Yeah, recycled plastic content requirements.
Yes.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Shorthand.
Good. Bless you.
Thank you.
PCR for short.
I have a question. Do you work with CSWD and their plastic recycling at all? I don't know what kind of plastics they're accepting now. I've heard problems with color. I don't know.
The solid waste management.
Yeah.
In Chittenden.
Yeah.
We have not asked them to come speak, but we have had the Department of Environmental Conservation that manages all the solid waste management entities across the state. They have come and spoken to us regarding plastic and policies in the state of Vermont.
I'm getting mixed messages. I'm not anyway, sure what CSWD is accepting these days.
Could I make a suggestion? Has anybody thought of contacting, say, Pike Industries, the pavement management folks that make paving materials for highways, and just consider possibility of mixing in plastic substances into the paving mix? Would it be just a way to dispose of it? Would it actually give it some flexibility that it doesn't have now, a little more resilience?
That makes me think of, we did hear a little bit about some trials of incorporating recycled tire material into pavements. So we did hear a little bit about that this year from someone from DEC. I think the preliminary, she was kind of just talking about, they had done some pilot program or something. I think it wasn't passing tests for durability. I think something like that. It basically made me think of like pave. It wasn't passing the test to be able to be paved, but this is not exactly what you're talking about, but it just made me think of it, of recycling tire material into paving material. So
Just as a
yeah.
mixture, I'm trying to make the
Yeah.
whole paving material out of that probably wouldn't be so great. See, and then might find something useful. Anybody who's tried it.
Sorry, I'm sure I did. Okay. Yes. Oh, is that Peggy? Is that Margaret? Sorry, I can't see.
Yes,
Go ahead.
yes, thank you, thank you. And I don't mean to be a wet blanket. I, of course, am interested in recycling opportunities. And you don't have to answer my question now, you may not be able to, but, is anyone like concerned about what might be leaching from these plastics? Especially if they're made from, these recycled substances are made from hard plastics that, might contain PFAS, for example. Or, like, it's just a whole other ball of wax, and I just want to throw that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a complex problem.
Yeah.
And complex solution. Yep. I'm going to bring this conversation back to our members. So I think we've got some preliminary things that we can get in there. And so the next part of the report of what we addressed in 2025, I did, pull out that we did keep abreast of legislative actions and discussions that were relevant to agriculture, including anything that was concerning PFAS materials, and we will continue to do so in 2026. So kind of moving on to this other, so plan for calendar year 2026. So one thing that will be on our plate as it gains more steam with the Agency of Agriculture is that so with my agency hat on, so we will be reaching out to consult with the AIB as we develop the pest risk assessment process. So that's a requirement that's called out in the recently passed neonic treated seed ban. So for someone to apply for an exemption for the use of a neonic treated seed has to conduct a pest risk assessment. So right now that doesn't exist. This is why Dr. Heather Darby is doing all the research that she's doing. And so it's for us to understand what pest risks, right, are there, and then how that risk can be evaluated, and to understand whether a neonic treated seed is warranted. And so that process is in development. And so we as AIB will work on our knowledge from doing research on it, right, for basically 2 years to help with that process as they develop that. So basically, it's just going to be working in conjunction with Dr. Heather Dowry and the agency as we develop what that looks like, what a pest risk assessment looks like. So that is on our docket for 2026. So other things, we've kind of already been talking about it. So to kind of round out our Class 6 requirements here in order to make a robust recommendation. I think we're going to look more into pilot program history here in Vermont. Also any data, I think it goes along with it. So not just like success, unsuccess, but any data that they might have. And then we'll look into the Trex recycling program, look into opportunities to use it in paving, things like that. Other things that were for Class 6, so is alternative. So expanding, right, our research is to learn more about alternatives. And so those things are here for 2026. Is there anything else that I'm missing? Of what we need to know? So more, yeah. Dig deeper into research on the alternatives, biodegradable. Dig deeper into the pilot programs, as far as plastic. And then just logistic wise in 2026, we're going to propose to keep the same meeting cadence, so every other month. So we met every other month for 2025. We would like to propose to continue that for 2026. Any members that are here, Leon, Jonathan, Sean, Amanda, is that okay every other month?
Works for me.
Okay, and the other thing is we had a request from a member, is it okay to move it to Tuesday afternoon? So instead of the fourth Monday afternoon of the month, the fourth Tuesday afternoon of a month. So we have one member who has a standing commitment on Monday afternoon. So it's Laura DePietro, who's works in our water quality division. She is a member of the board and she was asking if it could be Tuesdays. How about, do you guys, so then the next meeting would be Tuesday, February 24th. Or Tuesdays work for you guys that are here, Sean, Amanda? I'll put it in an email too, but.
February 24th? In February?
So that would be, yes, so it'd be, yeah, that would be the next one. But so.
Morgan, that
Yeah.
works for me, but I want to go back to the every other month. Do you feel like we're moving along at a pace that we need to be moving along? Or do we need to meet more often than every other month to get to some more concrete consensus on a more rapid timetable? What does that feel like from your perspective?
My personal perspective is that we don't have, as of right now, I mean, this can all change, right? When whatever happens in the legislature, the session. And it's not, it doesn't mean that we can't change halfway through the year, Leon, that we could add more. But I think right now we're not working to a deadline. I don't have a specific date like we did for the neonics. We had a specific date that we needed to meet. And so we met every month. I just want to be cognizant, I think, of your guys' time, as members, this isn't part of your everyday job. And so I think that's why we are proposing every other month. I think we're having trouble with participation. And so asking for more participation is, I don't know, but if other members, I mean, you guys are here right now. We're not getting the members that weren't able to make it today. So I guess, Leon, we don't have a specific deadline.
Okay, I'm good with the every other month. I just thought we should at least have a conversation about whether that seemed adequate from your perspective as the facilitator.
Yeah, well, thank you for bringing up, Leon. I'm happy to hear, from anybody else who's on here, Jonathan or Amanda or Sean.
I'm fine with the every other month. I think there was a period of time that we had work to get done in a timeline and we met every month. But I think every other month gets what we need accomplished. We keep working forward towards really addressing some of these things we've been tasked to do.
Yeah, I'm okay with every other month, and just looking at my calendar, looks like Tuesday afternoon works.
Okay. Amanda, I know that you are extremely busy. Are you still with us? Is that meeting cadence for 2026 work for you? She may have dropped. I don't have a.
Did you say February 24th?
Yes, so that will be published in the minutes and on the website, Sylvia. Okay.
Thank you.
So, so the other thing that you guys received from me in the past month or so is from Sylvia Knight. She's sitting here with us in the room. So she has suggested, and you guys all read in the email, she is suggesting to invite the Vanderway family from the Neatok farm to a future meeting to describe how their practices for terminating cover crops without pesticides. Sean, I know that you wrote me an email and kind of tell me about your experience. I don't know if you want to give it a little more context and how you feel as a member of it, if this is something that you'd like to have the board here in 2026, if you'd like to invite them.
I work with them fairly frequently in my role as extension in Champlain Valley. Talk to them, once a month, twice a month, at least. I did mention it to them and they were open to the idea. That's about as much as I got right now. If you want me to help facilitate that, I'd be glad to do it.
Sure. So I think this is so it's for the members present. So I don't know if Amanda's listening or not, or if she's still on. But so I think it's Jonathan, Sean, and Leon. So Sylvia's petition that she issued, and I'll give her a minute to talk about it as we get closer to public comment. But so it was shared with you, and she's calling out for AIB to address pesticide reduction, overall pesticide reduction in the state, and to hear from Neatok Farm as an example of a farm practice that is an alternative to using a pesticide, so in terminating cover crops without a pesticide use. And so I'm fine with it. I just members that are here, would you like to hear about that in 2026, address this?
I'm fine with that. I find as a farmer, hearing from farmers who are successfully using practices is the best way to learn about them.
Great. Sean?
Yeah, I just follow up, and say, just from knowing them over the past year, they are farmers that really do try to, they're not certified organic, but they do try to practice, minimal chemical inputs or no chemical inputs. They're believers in their system. I think that other producers might think of them as using alternative practices. I don't know that the Vanderways would necessarily like to be described as alternative. They're doing their own kind of system, and for them it seems to work. And so I think you need to make the distinction that they're not certified organic, but what they're doing is working for them. I don't know, Jonathan, do you interact with Howard and those guys very much?
I do, yes. And, they do what works for them. Yep. Do I think it's a broad stroke that can be painted? I don't know that that's the case. They're kind of unique in what they do and how they handle it. Hear from them. I don't have an issue with that, but I just want to make it clear that, they do what they do and it works for them, and to paint a broad stroke that's what the industry as a whole should do, I think is not accurate. I think there's a lot more variables and factors that go into that decision than, what Sid and Howard are doing. What Sid and Howard are doing are working for Sid and Howard. Yep. But that's, I think, where it stops. And if people want to hear what they're doing, I don't have an issue with that. I think, they do things differently, but, to also with the fact that if they get into trouble and situations don't go as planned, they will rely on the alternative. So, to hear them, I don't have a problem hearing them or what they do or having them share what they do, but to paint a broad stroke that what they do is what everybody else should do, I don't necessarily feel the same.
That maybe brings up the larger question, right? So by going down this route, right? So it'd be like, okay, well, we shouldn't just invite one farm, right? So it opens the gate to go down this path of, okay, let's hear from them. Let's hear from other alternatives. So like we've always tried to do that. We tried to do that with Neonics. We tried to do that, right? So it's you go down this path, but then you need to hear from everybody on all sides of the road, right? So I think it's great. So I think we can follow up with them, and Sean, I can work with you to facilitate that, to kind of schedule them and get them up and kind of what we might be looking for and talking and demonstrating to us. And so I think that's great. But so then to Jonathan's point and others is that let's go, right? Let's find some other people to also talk to. But is this what AIB, and I don't know if we can make this decision right now because we only have 3 members here, 4 if you count myself. So is this right? So we need to we are only so many people, right? So right now we've made the prioritization to do plastics, to finalize that recommendation to address those 2 mandates, 5 and 12. So we do have mandates that work on overall pesticide reduction in Vermont. Is that something that we do want to go down right now? As AIB, we could start this and then make that decision later, right? So we could start with this is just us dipping our toe in. And then, but I do think that if we start it with 1, we might need to at least expand a little bit so that we're not stuck with one side of the coin. But
It would have to be a broad spectrum.
Yeah.
You want to bring
I agree with Jonathan's point. I mean, like I said, a lot of their colleagues would look at them as alternative producers, and I think it doesn't ever hurt to have alternative viewpoints in the room, but we should present the big picture.
Okay, so I think
I have a question.
Yes.
About the, the people doing what they feel they need to do versus, and alternatives versus what, the general direction of where you're trying to go. So do you know the general direction of where you're trying to go?
It's a good question.
Because if you have a vision and a mission and you say, this is where we're trying to get to, then we could do, some things that, how can we help those who are going in that direction to go further? And how can we help those who are not going in that direction to get going in that direction? And I think, before we clamp down on people who are doing before you clamp down on anybody who's doing something that you think might not be what you want them to do, what are you trying to do? And once you know that, then you can help everybody to move forward. And I don't feel like I know where you're going, but you might know where you're going.
Thank you, Carol. So I think so we can tell you right now, based on our surveys from 2025, our path right now and our mission as AIB is make a recommendation on ag plastics to address the 2 mandates that are in statute, 5 and 12. So that's what our direction is right now as AIB. And that's based on survey results. And so that's what's addressed in our report. So that's where we're at right now. I think, yes, what's on the table right now, as we're taking up the suggestion, and is as members, right? So recognizing that we haven't tied up with a bow our recommendation to address those 2 mandates planning for the future, right? So then are we going to take another direction, right? So I think, yes, you're absolutely right, of we need to be guided because we can't do all 13 things at once.
And and you had mentioned earlier that we're getting more information from Heather Darby on the pest risk assessment. So
Correct,
that's another
yes.
piece of the work plan. So
Yes,
it's
you're right.
the 2 ag plastics and the pest risk assessment is definitely part of the work plan for 2026 based on the survey and needing to establish pest risk assessment for exemptions, the exemption process. And then what is being discussed with this additional farm is a different number within the list of 13. And I'm sorry, I don't know which one it is. But that would be yet another item. So do we start doing, so the question I'm hearing for the board to answer is, do we finish the ag plastic question when make a recommendation to the secretary of the agency as a part of the work plan for 2026, and obviously the pest risk assessment, which has to happen. And if they want to take on another responsibility of that list of items.
Yeah, so the what's in the statute for the overall reduction is number 2. Recommend practices that reduce the use of and exposure to pesticides and synthetic fertilizers in order to protect soil biology, human health, and environmental health, including recommended targets to achieve the state goal of an overall reduction in the use of pesticides consistent with sound pest or vegetative management practices.
Consistent with sound pest or vegetative management practices.
There's a lot in that.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, and
That's
I
like
would even
6
argue that
projects,
we
right?
have sort of addressed that, you know, this neonic best management practice piece has made one step closer to that. You know, I can't say that I don't feel like we've ignored the issue. You know, we were put forth something with the neonic program, and now, you know, we're going to pass forward a BMP program that, you know, puts guidelines to use of it. I don't think there's a timeline for this other than to keep working forward. And the minute you start adding in some of these other pieces, I feel they're even more complicated because there's water quality pieces, there's pesticide pieces, and all of those things, believe it or not, in this working landscape overlap and affect each other pretty drastically. So we need to be cognizant on some of these decisions and recommendations we put forward that they don't undo incentives and past forward or progress that we've made in other areas. So I think the direction we're headed, in my opinion, as a board member, is probably the direction we should keep going with those few pieces to take on one at a time. And at some point in the future, when we start tackling some of these other pieces, we can start breaking this down and looking at it as a more palatable or digestible data set or processes to look at some of these reductions rather than, you know, a holistic, all of a sudden tackling something, because there's a lot to be addressed and looked at in these pieces.
I think, Sylvia, you've been very quiet. Thank you. I will open it up to you if you want to say anything else about issuing your petition or anything to that matter to the board. You can do that now if you'd like.
Thank you for this time, Morgan, and I thank you all for your work on the AIB. For the record, I've worked on pesticide issues as a volunteer in Vermont. I've never been paid. I've worked on researching the peer-reviewed literature and looking at policy in Vermont and at the data of pesticide use. In 1970, Vermont began passed their first law calling for pesticide reduction in 1970. Some years following that, the Pesticide Advisory Council was created. But there were no benchmarks. They were not able to reduce pesticide use at all. As a matter of fact, pesticide use increased or even doubled in the 1990s. And BPAC had nothing to do with agriculture. So knowing that part of your charge, and there are 6 mandates in the legislature in relation to pesticide reductions. So there are about 160 people have signed the petition that we circulated on change.org. I don't know, have you all seen the petition?
They were all the members have received your petition.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that. There are 6 mandates, 6 directives in Act 49 having to do with pesticide reduction. We see a case before the courts now where 18 pesticides were discharged into Dead Creek without any permit at amounts above any standards. There is an urgency to try to moving toward pesticide reduction. Even the farm to plate plan, agriculture plan from the agency calls for a 20% reduction by 2030, and that's not very far away. So your work to reduce pesticides is an important work. And pesticide, there's about 360,000 pounds of active ingredient used annually in Vermont. That's a hell of a lot of pesticides used in Vermont. I'm sorry. And that's the ag is the largest. And then you have landscaping and golf courses that are also significant. Your work is important to reduce pesticides because for a number of reasons. Increased childhood cancers in northeast New York, northeastern US. Children are suffering from cancers and the treatment, and their outcome. The outcome of healthcare is very mixed. There's loss of pollinators and other wildlife species. Contamination of water leads to degradation and degraded aquatic ecosystems. We have contaminated food. We know that what's used on the land, it goes into the crops. Soil life is degraded by pesticides. Pesticides prevent CO2 sequestration in soil. We have increasing pesticide active ingredients are creating other toxic byproducts, including trifluoroacetic acid, which is becoming more prominent as a water contaminant. So it's time for this work to be done. So I would hope that we could get some committed members. Perhaps you could have a small group. We've got a small group here today, but could we have a smaller work group begin the work on this? I think benchmarks for the number of acres, where I see the neo now I'm sorry.
Neonics, you can just say neonics.
Yeah.
Yes.
The farm that we were just talking about.
Oh, Nita.
Neotalk.
The Vanderbilt.
Yeah. Neotalk farm in Ferrisburg is one example of how we can reduce the acres that are treated. So I think that reducing the number of acres or establishing benchmarks for the reduction of acres of treated areas is how we get to reduction. And one way we could get there, at least maybe 20% by 2030, would be to stop treating farms and treating fields in the springtime. As just one example, and that's why I think these farmers' methods are so important to hear about. I don't think we need to hear about from farmers. Really, we need to hear from farmers who help us move toward a different paradigm of less pollution, less use. That's the direction we need to go in. That's what the law says. It's not just, it's the law. You're being called to recommend practices that reduce the use of and exposure to pesticides, to protect soil biology, human health, and environmental health. So I urge your moving on that work. Now, I can understand if you feel that you need to achieve some closure on the plastics issue, which may be easier for your group. I can understand why you want to, quote unquote, finish that work. I don't know if it's ever finished. That's the thing, So I encourage you to find ways to maybe work on these two issues. This is an important mandate as well. And I'm willing to help. I'm willing to share information about the original languages, historic recommendations. I don't think there were very many recommendations that came out in the earlier years. The VPAC dealt mainly with the right-of-way permits. And that's kind of a different way, but a different arena of pesticide use. I've been studying Gulf pesticides recently. I've looked at Chittenden County Gulf course use. I'm looking at Orleans County Gulf course use. There's some toxic stuff being used there. We don't know, some of the fungicides are create a risk for human reproduction. I don't think you want, I think we need to find different ways of managing golf courses. So I urge you to work with your mandates here. Thank you for.
Thank you, Celia. I think, and members, you can chime in as well. So I think what I'm hearing from members is, none of us objected to hearing from Netah Farm. So I think we'll move forward on that. So it's a way for us to dip into this until we have more members present. And as we gain our new members, getting on board, hopefully in the beginning of 2026, then we can work on that kind of prioritization. So, but we do know for 2026 we have two things. So one is I'm hearing members. Yes, let's follow up on all of those things that we wanted to learn more about for plastics, to kind of keep learning about that and to make a more robust recommendation. And then we will follow up with our first recommendation and talk to Netah about. So Sean, Jonathan, Leon, is that a plan for at least the right? So February, so maybe we can have them. I mean, winter seems like maybe an okay time to have the Vanderways join us. Might be slightly less crazy for them, so maybe we'll hear from them right in February if we can schedule that. And so for so I think anything else as far as planning for 2026 before I open it up. I see your hand, so I'm gonna wait just one more second to have a few more public comments if that's what's there. I want members to have a last chance to say. Yeah, go ahead, Leon.
I just wanted to point out, I believe today's meeting would have actually been in November except for Thanksgiving. So I wonder if our next meeting is in January.
Yeah, we do split it, right? So we're not at the fourth Monday of the month in this end of the year one. We kind of always split it between Christmas and this. I think
I know last year our first meeting of the year was in January, so that's why I brought it up.
yeah, so we can change it to January. I mean, right now we're just four of us, but we can say that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this has always been the case between the holidays.
Yeah.
We don't have a November and a December meeting. We'd always just have one that was kind of in the beginning of December.
Yeah. So we can do, if we do the fourth Tuesday of January, we can get an idea. We'll be what, 2 weeks, a week and a half into the session. So it'll be early in the session, and then we won't have, right, so then we'll be January, March. So then we'll be mid-session as far as checking in the legislature. I'm fine with that. If you guys, I'm seeing indifference from Jonathan, Sean, you want to just say January instead, and we can start off fresh?
I can't do the 20th. I don't know if that's the fourth Tuesday or not. I don't think it is actually, is it? Nope, that's the third Tuesday.
Yep, so it'd be the 27th.
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay. Okay, let's do that.
Mr. Hooper has a hand up.
Yep, I do see that. I'm just trying to do our things before I open it up for full public comment, okay? So I just wanted January, what did I just say, 27th? Yeah, okay. Okay. Bob, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wonder if there's a component of this board that has an active affiliation with either a national or other group that talks to Bear or Dow or plastic manufacturers and sees what they're going to and what we're going to be basically restricting so that industry has an ability to respond proactively to where we'd like them to go.
So we don't have a representative on the board that is tied to the pesticide industry. We usually have someone joining us. Are you still on the call from Bayer? So, but also, so what the AIB's responsibility is, so what's being shared right now is our mandates. So those mandates, so we are all make recommendations to the Agency of Agriculture. So that the AIB's authority is only to make recommendations to the Agency of Agriculture, or when asked specifically to the General Assembly, right? So if they have said they have a specific legislation that they call out, that then the Ag Innovation Board is added as a required action for the Ag Innovation Board, then recommendations can go directly to specific members of legislature, committee, ag committees and such. So those are our mandates as AIB, is to make recommendations. So right now, what you're saying, so yes, so the industry is aware of the law that was passed, as an example, that is affecting the pesticide industry, as far as banning of neonic pesticides in certain uses and neonic treated seeds coming up in 2029. So those laws that are passed then affect the chemical industry, but we don't have to make a recommendation or make the chemical industry aware. Are there? Oh, yeah, sorry, Bob.
I was kind of wondering, I mean, we make a regulation, they respond to it in the interim between when the regulation is made prohibiting something. Our ag community runs around with their heads cut off to some degree, finding some other solution. I was just wondering how proactive we are. That's
so the recommendation. Yeah. So the recommendation goes to the agency and to the secretary. The secretary then has the opportunity to take some further step. But any law that becomes that, before anything becomes a law or a regulation, there's a fair bit of public process that the industry will have an opportunity, and or affected parties like nurseries, or farmers, they have an opportunity to weigh in through that additional public process. So there's multiple layers of public process, I guess, is the point. And so they will have an opportunity to weigh in and share whatever impacts or pivots that they may need to make in order to address the regulation that might be passed by the legislature, or a rule, for that matter, that the agency, rulemaking process that the agency goes through. There's still additional public process that happens.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Are there any other members of the public who have joined us today who would like to make a comment? Go ahead, Peggy.
Thank you. This has been very interesting, and I really appreciate being a participant here today. I just wanted to get behind the idea of moving forward with looking at pesticide use in agriculture, but also beyond. Like I told you, I'm part of the Don't Undermine Memphremagog's Purity group. Is a local grassroots environmental group. We're up in the Memphremagog watershed. We've been following up concerns about chemical runoff from the landfill, or chemicals that have been or are being discharged into the watershed, which is a drinking water reservoir. So I just want to highlight that issue because now my interest or concern, I guess, has expanded to include ag use of chemicals, golf courses use of chemicals, etc. And the point being, especially if you remember the last two floods we had here, which were extreme, and the runoff was devastating to the lake in terms of phosphorus, but also, you know, you have to wonder what all else was coming through in those flood times, as well as what may be just running off any old day. So I guess I that's all I want to say is just that I really do urge you to continue this focus on that second goal, the recommendation around reducing the use of pesticides in ag or in any other circumstance. So again, thank you very much. I never even knew your board existed until very recently, and this is such important work that you're doing. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Peggy, and thanks for joining. All right, we're just wrapping up our last few minutes, but does any other public comment? Great. All right, board members, you should see another round of the draft report sent to you guys. So I'll kind of tidy it up, add in what we heard today about ag plastics, add in what we heard today about 2026 plans. And so that will be in your inboxes shortly for a review. So that will still be due before we meet next. So it's due to the legislature by January 15th. So we'll just finalize that over email. And so we will meet next, and that will be in the communication to everybody on January 27th, Tuesday afternoon. And that's it. I thank you all for coming and for participating. Thank you, Jonathan, John, Leon, Amanda. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Morgan.
See y'all later.
Thank you, Morgan.
Yes, have a happy end of 2025.
I do appreciate your responsiveness in emails. I recognize that the spring becomes an extremely busy time.